Hunting with a traditional bow. Here's what you need to know if this is your first time, or at least this is what I wish I knew when I started. Today we're covering 5 things. 1, is it ethical? 2, how much draw weight is even needed? 3, how good does your aim need to be? And 4, what are the most important factors of hunting with a trad bow? And 5, my experience, my actual real life hunting experience shooting traditional longbows and recurves while hunting. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to go into quite a bit of details here. So if hunting's not your thing, this video is probably not for you. So move on to the next video and thanks for watching. So is it ethical to hunt with a trad bow? I personally never want an animal to unnecessarily suffer. I want to hunt as responsibly as I possibly can. Hunting with a trad bow can be a recipe to wound animals, but it can also be a way to have nearly 100% success. I think someone with a trad bow can hunt more ethically than someone with a high-powered rifle. It is more about your skill level and your decision making than it is about the type of weapon you're using. Some, of course, have a lot more room for error than others. But if you pick your shots very specifically, you can be more successful with this. How much draw weight do you actually need in a bow to be able to hunt with it, especially a traditional bow? This is one of the biggest questions I had when I first started hunting traditionally. Arrow speed's more critical than draw weight, and the arrow's kinetic energy is even more critical than arrow speed. Bow efficiency is a very big deal. I make bows. I personally have a 60-pound bow that's not very efficient. I also have a 40-pound bow that is ridiculously efficient and fast. As a matter of fact, they shoot the same feet per second with a 20-pound variance in draw weight. So speed's more important, which makes me say asking the question about what draw weight should you use is an imperfect question. But it's what most of us have to go off of. So let's run with it. First thing is I'm going to shoot as fast of a bow, as heavy draw of a bow as I can while still being accurate. If my accuracy starts to drop, then I went too high, or I haven't practiced enough. Also, you may just need to grow your strength. You might need to grow muscle to be able to hunt the type of game you want with a traditional bow. Or maybe you just need a more efficient bow. But not everybody can do that. Some people have some pretty serious shoulder injuries which limit them to shooting a certain poundage of bow. Other kids, like when I was growing up, coming through junior high and high school, I wanted to start hunting as soon as I could. But I didn't know if I was strong enough yet to be able to hunt. I didn't want to have to wait another year to get stronger. I wanted to hunt that year. Number 1, look up your state laws. A lot of state laws have a minimum draw weight. It's generally around 40 pounds, maybe 45. Also check if there's an age restriction. Sometimes there are. Secondly, it's a good question to ask, what are you hunting? For example, I've hunted in Arkansas, Kansas, and Colorado. In Arkansas, I took a 100-pound deer, 100 pounds, and it's about average size deer for the area. In Kansas, deer are like 150 to 250 pounds, so quite a bit bigger. A 100-pound versus a 200-pound deer is twice the size. In Colorado, we have mule deer even bigger than that. But if you jump up to elk, now you're talking 500 pounds, 700 pounds for a nice bull. And then if you had a trad hunt for a moose, you could be like 900 pounds to 1,500-pound animal. That's crazy. A 100-pound deer and a 1,000-pound moose may not need the same weapon. Know the game you are hunting and know how big that animal is, the average size, because that matters quite a bit. This is oversimplified here, but here's my general rule for draw weight with hunting. I feel comfortable whitetail deer hunting with a 40-pound traditional bow as long as I'm not shooting beyond 20 yards. For elk hunting, I like to go up to a 50-pound bow without shooting beyond 20 yards. But if I'm going to shoot out to 35 or 40 yards, which I definitely can get there for elk hunting, I like to bump that up to more of a 60-pound bow. I like a heavy arrow shooting 200 feet per second for elk or above. With that, I've talked to people who use much slower bows and slower standards than I have and have been successful with deer and elk. Number 3, how good does my aim need to be? Like, how accurate do I need to be before going hunting? If you switch from compound to traditional, the general experience is that it's very hard to aim. It's very difficult to get consistent. Compound bow is easier to get within a kill zone quicker than a traditional bow is generally. And especially when you're used to that compound, you can almost go the entire year, shoot 2 or 3 times before season. As long as you're not shooting a ridiculous distance, a lot of people can hit very accurately with very little practice. It's not the same game. You need to be confident, really confident with the shot you're going to take while hunting. Not three-pointer confident, not free throw confident, layup confident. Know the animal you're hunting, know the general size of that animal, and then also what is the size of that kill zone, where you could hit anywhere in that area and the chances are extremely high that you're going to recover the animal. And then in practice, I personally like to be 5 out of 5 in that kill zone. And not all kill zones are circles, so think about the actual shape and maybe practice with that. Because with a traditional bow, a shoulder blade is not a good idea unless you're really packing a punch. It normally turns out pretty bad. But with some compound bows, you can kind of punch through that, so your kill zone could change a little bit depending on how fast that arrow's going. So keep this in mind. I start at 7 yards. I take 5 shots. Can I hit all 5 in the kill zone? Yeah, that's not a big deal. Let's move back 2 or 3 yards to 10 yards. Good. We're good to go. 2 or 3 yards, 13, 15, 17, 19. Keep moving back. And when you don't get the 5 out of 5, that's the distance you need to practice at. Now, I'm not saying 100%, but being over 90% would be good. So occasionally you are going to miss some out of those 5, but knowing that you are pretty confident 5 out of 5, if you can do that up to that 12-yard mark, but you start getting all wonky at 15 yards, what's wrong whitetail deer hunting up to 12 yards and just make that your distance limit? Out of the 20 whitetails I've taken, 90% have been within 20 yards and like 60% have been within 15 yards. Now you should always be working to extend your limit and distance that you can accurately shoot. But the reason I want to be so confident at this distance that I'm going to hunt with is because when you're out in the field, when you're out hunting, you can't control all the factors. It's a live moving animal. That reduces your control by a ton. Plus now you've got all the elements, you've got the weather, and every inch, every foot, every yard you go further from your target, the more room there is for things to go bad. And that's not even counting human factors of you potentially being nervous and excited. So the closer you are and the better you are in practice, the more likely you're gonna get a kill shot every single time. I personally would rather goof on the side of having too high of a standard than shooting 10 arrows and only getting 2 animals. I don't like that. And I know people who do that. Number 4, what really matters most to have the best possible chance of success with hunting with some type of traditional bow? The arrow needs to fly straight. A crooked arrow is gonna lose a lot of its punching power. The arrow really needs to be tuned and dialed in. From the research I've done and what I can tell, a heavy tip weight, a heavy front weight is really important. Now you don't just need a heavy broadhead. You can have a heavy broadhead, but I like to say tip weight because inserts and insert extensions can increase that tip weight with a lighter broadhead. Without accuracy, the tip weight doesn't matter. A fast arrow is not fast enough for an animal to not jump the string. These bows are slow enough, you're not gonna beat a deer's reaction time. So what I do is I focus on quietness. I like to add beaver string silencers. On 3-piece takedowns, I like to add as much felt. Anywhere there's noise, I like to reduce that sound, and I lose my 3 to 5 feet per second. I'm okay with that because my goal when I release the arrow is that the deer doesn't hear it at all. You can have a big benefit over compound bows because these are so much quieter than compounds, especially when they're dampened down. This one's overlooked a lot for traditional hunters, new traditional hunters, but focus on hunting more than maybe your equipment. Maybe the difference between compound and traditional is less about the equipment, but more about your skill of instead of getting within 50 yards, getting within 20 yards. If you can do that, then it's really not harder to be accurate with a traditional bow within 20 yards. It's just a different distance range. I mean, it's like a compound to a rifle. You might be great with a compound out to 50 or 60 yards and you're dialed in, and then a rifle, your 60-yard compound shot might be a 400 or 500-yard rifle shot for you as far as the level of difficulty. So my 50-yard compound shot is like a 24-yard trad shot. So all I need to do is change my standard of the distance that I'm hunting at, and then I can have the exact same amount of success with a trad bow when I release an arrow. Percentage of success. Of course, it's harder to get closer to an animal, but isn't that the rush? Isn't that the excitement of doing it? With trads, you need even bigger discipline. You need to know your game, you need to know your rules, and you need to set those distances to not shoot beyond. You need to know that if it's slightly courting towards, there's no chance you're gonna shoot. Like, you need to know exactly your own personal rules to have the highest success. And when you're tempted to break those rules, be a man and don't break those rules. Allow yourself to follow the rules so that you will have success and you're not on a 2-day blood trail of a wounded animal. That's a nightmare. None of us want to be there. Let's do it right. And even if we do everything right, things can still go wrong, and that's okay. And that's part of the responsibility we take. But let's give ourselves every possible chance to get it right. Number 5, my personal experience. What I've learned is that I like a really heavy front tip weight on my arrows. I like it to be over 150 grains at the minimum. Like I mentioned earlier, you can do this by adding heavier inserts or insert extensions, but you can generally get this in traditional archery broadheads. I like a broadhead that is a fixed blade broadhead, and I want it to be as long as possible. I think this creates a better attack angle to slide through the animal instead of punch it, which in other terms is just better penetration. I've shot deer in Kansas and in Arkansas with this Osage bow right here. It's basically like a live edge Osage bow, shooting 150 feet per second with 175 grain broadheads. All the deer I've taken have been complete pass-throughs with this bow. I did have a tragic accident. I hit one in the shoulder blade once and I wasn't able to recover that one. It sucked. From this primitive stick, I've been using a fiberglass bow I built for elk hunting. This is a fast bow. I carried this one about 50 miles through the elk woods this year. Last year I took the Bones. The Bones is this bow I designed for Shatterproof Archery, and a lot of people have used this. I haven't taken an elk with the Bones, but some customers who have purchased this have, as well as many deer. The reason I wanted a takedown for elk hunting is because I cover a lot of ground and I go pretty light. And sometimes it is useful to be able to literally take the bow down and run through the woods basically. It's a little weird. I hunt differently than most people, but I can put the bow in my backpack with it being like this, or I can take it on a mountain bike much easier when I can take it down than having a one-piece bow. This past September elk hunting, we got so close, I almost got one with this bow. What my hunting experience has taught me is that accuracy is more important than arrow speed. You can be super accurate, and if your bow is super quiet, the likelihood that an animal is going to hear you when you release the arrow is low. Now, I have had one hear my arrow with a traditional bow, but the rest haven't. It's generally so silent that it's like a little thud in the woods, and if there's any reaction, they're just like, huh, did a stick fall? They're not like arching their back and jumping and skidding off like when a compound bow shoots. Pause real quick to say, this is of course if they don't know you're there. If they've already seen you or smelled you, then they may jump the string. Very, very frequently it's a different response. And if you're within those 20 yards, you've got a really good chance if you're super accurate. I know a lot of people have been wanting hunting videos from me. It's a very requested topic. I might make some in the future on the Kramer Ammons YouTube channel. Otherwise, this right here is the Shatterproof Archery YouTube channel. Check out shatterproofarchery.com. That is now my brother's business. I sold it to him so that I can do content full-time on my main channel. So with that, stay shatterproof, my friends. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.